everyone, and welcome to this month's Hear from an Expert. I'm Leanne Taylor, and the account sales executive with Murdoch Webster. We also have on the call Casey Ray, who's just joined us as well, and Michael Haig started with us on Monday as a principal consultant. We also have, many of you will already know, Chris Mearns, our fearless leader and CTO, and Craig Myers is also hosting with me today, who's our guru Veeam expert, amongst many other things, Craig. So Craig's been with Murdoch Webster for over 12 years and awesome to work with. And in his spare time, he's built a boat. So that's interesting fun fact with Craig. We've also got today Thomas and Stephen from Veeam. So today's Hear from an Expert is focused on Veeam's technology and backups. Craig and I work with a lot of customers in that space, and we get a lot of questions around how to secure your backups and prevent any security breaches in that space. So it'll be an interesting chat today with these guys. I'm going to make sure everyone's on mute. If you have any questions, please take yourself off mute or put your questions in the chat, and I'll ask them as we go along. And I'll certainly hand over to Stephen. So Stephen's been with Veeam for 3 years. He's a mad soccer fan. And Thomas, you can talk as much as you like. You're from Chile and I love your accent. So I'll maybe start with you. Over to you guys.
Thanks very much, Leanne, and the whole Murdoch Webster Technology Group team for hosting this session. And as we speak as well, we're playing a World Cup qualifiers match. So it's hope that we win now. So if we can, just kick it off. And before we move to the expert as well, I will give a quick overview on where we are sitting right now as a business, quick numbers update. Then we will move with the version 11 recent updates that we launched early this year. And we will hand it over as well to Steve and everyone to see the demo and to see everything around the new updates. And we will follow it up with some questions and answers from everyone here. So next one. So wanted to give you, as mentioned before, a quick update on last year's numbers. As you can see, we had a great year in terms of numbers, results, numbers of customers and partners and net promoter score, etc., everything. And this is a result of, obviously, that COVID has been accelerating all of the cloud adoption and the software as a services offerings. And obviously, customers are migrating workloads to the cloud, utilizing Office 365 much more than before. So that's a good indication as well on why our numbers as well are keep growing, and all the numbers in the IT industry as well are going up. So we were in a very good position because we had all of our software and all of our solutions ready to go for this. So it was a very good timing. And especially with the public cloud offering and Office 365 backup solutions that we have in market right now. All of this growth as well has been supported by our ongoing investment in product development and also our relationships with our partners, such as Murdoch Webster Technology Group, where we really see our partner community deploying, configuring, and managing all of our solutions to you guys, our customers, to achieve those outcomes that you're looking to fulfill. And we have been partnering as well with the Murdoch Webster Technology Group now for several years now, and they have all the necessary capabilities to deploy and manage all of our solution suite and all of our offerings, and also to fully support it. If we move into the next slide around our differentiators. So we really have 3 core tenets in building and delivering our solutions. First of all, simple. The single platform brings together all of your data in one place, and it also has built-in intelligence that enables actionable insights to respond to any, for example, unexpected events or crisis. Also, the scalable architecture grows as your business grows. The only exception here with putting all of your data in one pane of glass is that the Office 365 backup solution is a standalone product for the moment. Secondly, we're flexible in terms that our backup and data management solution is software defined, hardware agnostic, and also cloud ready, giving you a choice wherever to run Veeam software. And also choosing your own storage and your cloud technology without any vendor lock-in. And third of all, reliable in terms of doesn't matter where your data is located, either on-premise, on cloud, managed cloud, etc. We ensure that each part of this data ecosystem is backed up and accessible at all time. And also that data is 100% portable across any systems, and it's always recoverable without, again, no reliance in any specific hardware, or even as well in continual licensing options. So we don't like vendor locking and will never promote it. And now I will leave you guys with Steve, our expert today. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. I'm just checking you can hear me okay.
Can do, yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thanks, Thomas. Great introduction, and appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you guys today. So it's certainly not death by PowerPoint. I've got a couple of slides, 3 in total, including this one, and then we'll drop into our demo center and we can go through really functionality within Veeam Backup Replication, really predominantly around security and leveraging cloud for long-term retention and DR. And we can sort of go off on little tangents if need be, depending on the questions, etc. But ultimately, first of all, I just want to run you through version 11. So that became GA, it's around 3 months ago now, maybe slightly longer. Time just flies so quickly. And we've had well over 100,000 downloads of Veeam Backup Replication version 11 globally. So it's been a very well received update, as was version 10 previous to that. And this slide really shows the big 5, I guess, the big 5 features relating to version 11. There was over 100 plus features in version 11, but these are the real main ones that were really highlighted within our forums, which really is the prerequisite to any new features within the product. So just going to go into these in a little bit more detail. So Veeam Backup Replication version 11, as the name suggests, we've always had replication, but it's always been snapshot-based replication. And that gets us down to those sort of 15-minute RTPOs, which is the majority of workloads that doesn't need any lower than that. But again, snapshot-based replication. What continuous data protection gives us is moving away from snapshot-based replication and leveraging the VAIO filter from VMware. So what we're doing is installing the IO filter on every node within the cluster, both source and target, and being able to collect the IOs as they come in and excuse me, replicate those to the target side. And that allows us to really get down to those synchronous type RTPOs down to seconds. Now, as I said, 95% of workloads, the snapshot-based replication would take care of that. But we're really seeing CDP, as we know it, as for that sort of top 5% of critical workloads that really need that synchronous type replication. Now, a little bit about the architecture. As I said, we need to deploy the IO filter to every node within the cluster, both source and target. Once we've done that, we create what we call our CDP proxy, which are the data movers from source to target. And then finally, we create what we call our CDP policies. So it's like a backup job. We just call them policies when it comes to CDP. Now, the most recent restore point is crash consistent. That, again, allows us to move the data across. Default RTPO is 15 seconds. We can get that down as low as 2 seconds. And once we're at the secondary site, we can then start to put short-term retention. So that could be every 15 seconds for an hour or 2 hours, whatever that may be. And then we can get what we call long-term retention. And we could say maybe take a restore point every hour for 12 hours. And that's where we can get our application consistent snapshot from a replication standpoint. So that's CDP. Just from a compatibility point of view, it is only VMware back 6.5 and onwards. I did have a question around version 6 because that supports the IO filter, but really from our Veeam supportability point of view, because even 6.5 is fairly old, it's 6.5 and onwards. Now onto the second topic around hardened Linux repositories. Back in version 10, we brought the ability to use Linux repositories as your landing zone for your backup. Version 11 has added a couple of new features to it. Firstly, to harden a Linux repository, we've created a single sign-on deployment. So we still need that sudo account, but we only need the credentials for the deployment. After that, we need that sudo account, but we don't need the credentials, which immediately hardens that repository. On top of that, we can apply the XFS immutability flag on the XFS file system. So what that then is allowing us to do is to create immutable backups on the performance tier. Those of you who know Veeam, because I think some of you on the call are already Veeam customers, some are looking potentially to move to Veeam. We get to object storage via a scale-out backup repository, and a scale-out backup repository has our on-prem and then our object storage. So we don't go directly to object storage. So there's a number of things that also came out of the VeeamON forum or VeeamON 2021 that ran a couple of weeks ago to even add additional security around the Linux repositories. We're even adding, we've already got the ability to disable SSH, and also we're going to be able to leverage the secure, I think they call it the secure supply chain, and having that zero trust policy with a third party supplier to supply those certificates. But again, that's sort of a little bit of a roadmap sort of function. Thirdly, we've got our Glacier, AWS Glacier and Azure Archive. Excuse me. We've had capacity tier since 9.5 update 4. In version 10, we brought the ability to not only move GFS restore points to object storage, so weeklies, monthlies, yearlies, but also with version 10, we can copy to object storage, which gives us that disaster recovery, addressing that disaster recovery use case. And also with version 10, immutability on capacity tier. So with performance tier, with the Linux repositories, with capacity tier and object lock capabilities, which comes with AWS and S3 compatible. So if you're looking at potentially a private cloud, you could look at something like a Cloudian or a NetApp Storage Grid or something like that that supports object lock, and we could provide that as your capacity tier on-prem. But with version 11, we've brought the ability to even push long-term retention and GFS backups and reduce that total cost of ownership to Glacier and Archive. Now, there's a fundamental difference between capacity tier and archive tier. Capacity tier gives us every single capability that performance tier has. For example, we can do an instant VM recovery, we can do a file level recovery, get that granular level of recovery directly from capacity tier. With archive tier, it's slightly different. It's a different use case. So we're moving the GFS backups, and we're using a proxy to create gigablobs. So we're taking those 1 or 4 meg block sizes that are created as part of the backup job and configured within the backup job, and creating a gigablob to dump into Glacier. So really, we're very much aware that we're trying to reduce down as much as possible that network cost that you get within public cloud, those gets and puts. So that's Glacier and Archive. And I'm going to touch on this a lot more within the console and actually show you how simple it is to configure. Fourthly, expanded instant recovery. We've had instant recovery since version 7. So being able to leverage our vPower NFS technology to mount deduped and compressed backup files via a mount server to an ESXi host of our choice, and bringing up those VMs within seconds and within seconds. What we've expanded on with version 10, not quite on version 11 yet, but with version 10, we brought anything to vSphere, recover anything to vSphere, physical, virtual, cloud, and also being able to publish Oracle and SQL databases off the Dedupe and compressed backup files for DevOps type use cases. With version 11, we've expanded it even further. We can do anything to Hyper-V. We can also instantly recover SQL and Oracle databases. So we can again leverage that vPower NFX technology to not only publish them, but spin them up, be working with them, and then promote them into production at a either scheduled time or immediately or whatever suits the business. And then lastly, we can instantly recover NAS file shares or Windows file shares directly from the deduped and compressed backup files. So again, bringing your business up and online again as quickly as possible. And finally, we've added a Google Cloud platform for capacity tier. So we've Google Object Storage to capacity tier. Before version 11, we had AWS, S3 compatible, Azure, and IBM. We've added Google if that's your preferred public cloud provider. So that's the main 5. The next slide I've got is really to expand it out to other features that came as part of version 11. I'm certainly not going to go through them all because we'd be here till Friday week. But a couple of the ones that may be of interest with the Veeam agent for Windows, we can now leverage backup from storage snapshots. As I said, Veeam is a snapshot-based solution, and we use a VMware snapshot to use that as the source for the backup. But as we can with VMware or virtual workloads, we can leverage storage snapshots like from a HP Nimble or a Pure FlashArray or whatever it might be. We have a lot of global storage APIs because we are software defined and storage agnostic. We can leverage that and use a storage snapshot to move that data from source to target. And we have that feature now within agents and physical workloads that we can use the hardware snapshot from a certain amount of vendors that are on the supported list. We can also set up GFS and daily retention for the agents as well. Previous to version 5 of the agent, you only had restore points. So that if you were doing ad hoc backups, it would, if you said 7 restore points and you were doing ad hoc backups, that's what you thought might be 7 days and was restore points, you're doing ad hoc backups, so that reduces it down to maybe 3 or 4 days. Now with daily, you can say daily and you can do as many ad hoc backups as you like, and it will keep it for 7 days. Also GFS with the weekly, monthly, yearly. And also around the added functionality with regards to global dedupe devices. I know some people, some customers use global dedupe as their initial landing zone for the backups. As Veeam, we don't recommend it as from a best practice standpoint because it is for us that long-term retention, and you have that hydration cost to deal with or rehydration cost to deal with when you're doing restores. But what we've done is added the ability to extend that size of the backup chain because we've moved it from 64 meg blobs or files to 1 gig. So that extends the size of the backup chain, but also we've got a metadata extent. So that metadata extent stays hydrated. So we haven't got to rehydrate it before doing the restore. So a number of things there to help with performance. So that's about it with regards to the full list. As I said, I don't intend to go through them all. If there is something of interest there, happy to take it offline or work with you and work with you and Murdoch Webster to address any requirements you might have. But what I'm going to do now is to drop into the console, and hopefully you can see that. Thomas, could you just let me know that you've seen the change?
Yeah, we can see.
Yep.
Perfect.
Does anyone have any questions before we jump into the demo?
Okay.
Craig, any comments?
No, we're all good. We just had Jim just asked CDP's VMware only. That's right, Stephen. It's because it's utilizing the VAIO. Yep.
VMware only. I mean, if you are looking to go public cloud, we obviously don't have access into the hypervisor, but if you're using something like VMC on AWS or something like that, there is a level of functionality there that we could use CDP for that, that type of use case. But yes, VMware only. Thanks for the question. So yeah, just dropping into the console and really doubling down on what I've spoken about on the big five, I guess that big five slide around, and we're going to hone in a little bit more on the security side of things and leveraging cloud for both long-term retention and DR. So for those of you that are familiar with Veeam and are using Veeam, some of this may be already familiar to you, but I think it's important for those of you that are potentially looking at Veeam to see how simple it is to leverage object storage as part of your what we call our scale-out backup repository. And for those of you who are not aware, scale-out backup repository essentially is a group of what we call extents, and an extent could be DAS, SAN, SMB, but also it can be object storage. And that together creates just a logical pool of storage that you can leverage for your backups and your entire life cycle of your backups. So hence then we have our performance tier for our on-prem and our sort of short-term retention, and then leveraging object storage for both long-term retention and DR. But just within the repositories, as you can see here, as I mentioned earlier, we don't go directly to object storage. So what you've got to do first of all is create your what we call simple repository, whether that's DAS, SAN, SMB, object storage. Once you've done that, you create what we call our scale-out backup repository that's here, and I'll go into that in a moment. So just to show you through this, if I, for AWS, for example, because it has that immutability capability, if I right click here, properties, and just show you how simple it is to configure, you give it a name. Sort of frozen on me for the moment. Bear with me. This is where you're just hoping the demo gods are with you.
It's always the way, Stu.
Yeah. Just bear with me 1 second. I've just lost connection. See if my VPN's connected. No, I've lost the entire connection. Bear with me.
All right. I think, Chris, we need a joke.
No, I can go on topic for, I'm sorry.
Only take a moment.
So, Chris, the word joke and word insult are interchangeable.
Thanks, Louay.
Yeah, having issues connecting now. Bear with me. Let me unpresent for the moment.
So, Steve, while that's going up, is with the immutable, is there any way at all once that immutable tag's been set to delete that data?
No. So once that's set, and this is where you got to be a little bit careful with what the retention policy you put around that. Best practice, we say set that to the retention policy on the primary backup job, because I've had customers say, "Oh, we want to make everything immutable." Well, if you've got if you want to set it to hundreds of days, be careful with that, because you can never delete it, and your public cloud consumption is going to blow out. So yeah, that's in answer to your question. No, you can't delete it, and there's some best practices around that. So guys, I've just reconnected, so if you bear with me. Share my screen again, and hopefully that's the last of the issues. Thomas, can you just confirm, or someone confirm you can see it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yep. So yeah, just to hone in on the wizard for creating your object storage. So you give it a name, you put in your credentials. Now, just to come out of this for a moment, you can either put in your credentials every time, or you can manage your cloud credentials from here from a global level. You can just add in your, whether it's Azure storage account or your AWS access keys. And once it's in there, then it will just come down. It will just be in the list within the drop down. So that makes it a lot easier for you. So you put in your credentials, the region, which is more often than not global. Gateway server really is to help with that. If your extents don't have direct internet access. Sorry, I need to clarify that. So if you don't use a gateway server, all of your extents need to have internet access. But look, just use a gateway server, and that by default is the backup server. And then you just go to the bucket. Again, bear with me a second. This normally takes. This is normal. That this takes a little while to load up. And what it's going to show me here is the bucket that I want to use, and obviously prior to creating your repository on Veeam, you would have created your storage account, say with Azure, created your container, etc. Typical. Normally it doesn't take this long, and as soon as you're demoing it, it's you're in the land of the demo gods.
That's all right.
With the scale out repositories, can you start with a normal repository and then turn it into a scale out repository by adding the capacity tier?
So yeah, so what a scale out backup repository is a number of extents. So you firstly create your repositories. Now but as I said, that could be your DAS, your SAN, your SMB, plus your object storage, and then you go to your scale out backup, and then that's when you configure what do I want as my performance tier, what do I want as my capacity tier, and in version 11, what do I want as my archive tier. Bear with me a second. Let's just. This is really not helpful. Bear with me. There's not much I can do and not much I can show. It's totally frozen up. Let me disconnect for the moment.
Craig, maybe while we're doing this, you can talk to some of the engagements that we've done at Murdoch Webster for Veeam customers. Typical things that we see clients asking for.
Yeah, for sure. So I suppose at the moment the big question that we're getting asked a lot is how or if we should be moving backups into the cloud, how we protect workloads up into the cloud, what's that going to cost, what's that look like, and the way that actually recover out of the cloud, which is a big one at the moment. So we're working through those solutions with our clients, and it's generally a case-by-case basis depending on what kind of data you're putting up there and what recoveries you want, if you need to go to the cloud or if you can split your backups internally on your own sites.
Yeah, so just bear with me, guys. I'm just firing up the console again because I'm wondering if it's just a delay on the AWS. So I'm just on the bucket I was trying to connect to, or the subscription. So I'm just trying to connect to the Azure. Bear with me. Sorry, guys, for this, but this is unfortunately when we go to live demos, it's always part of the challenge.
We're also seeing a lot of use case for automation in the network with Veeam's replication and orchestration abilities. We're seeing the call for clients to automate their recovery procedures so that we can use Veeam Availability Orchestrator to start standing up the DR site in the event of a failure without the need for IT staff to be scrambling around and clicking buttons.
Yeah, and to that point, Craig, the recovery to public cloud is a big conversation topic for me as well. It's customers wanting to get away from that second site and leveraging public cloud for DR. Now, again, with Veeam, we can provide that level of functionality and recover directly to public cloud. And what I might do, because of these challenges I'm having with here, I might just move on to the next topic. Bear with me.
The other use case we've seen a lot of is backing up Office 365 at the moment, especially with the new capabilities in VBO to back up Teams. Obviously, we're on a Teams call at the moment. A lot of businesses are now using Teams primarily for their communication and data storage. So we're seeing a lot of use cases for actually being able to back up email and Teams in out of the Office 365 cloud.
Yeah, and with version 6 that came out of Veeam, we're going to also be able to do self-service and archiving off to Glacier as well with version 6. So with version 5, we'd added Teams to that, but with version 6, we've added the ability to back up copy job off to not only we already have that object storage capability, but pushing it off to archive tier. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to bypass the part where I'm actually touching on the or connecting to a subscription, because clearly that's causing me a problem at the moment. But just going to the Scale Out Backup repository, once you've created these repositories, so you've got your performance tier, or there's some of your performance tiers. So you've got your, for example, you've got your immutable performance tier, and I can show you this here because it's all local. So when I'm creating my Linux immutable repository, where we can enable the XFS mutability flag, what it's going to allow us to do is to set the immutability flag within the performance tier. Like I said here, also we can leverage the XFS fast cloning, so giving you that block cloning type efficiencies within the repository, but also setting this immutability flag. And unfortunately, I can't seem to show it to you at the moment with the AWS, but within the AWS bucket, when you get to that bucket tab, you'll see the ability to tick this box and say immutable backups. So again, what we suggest is to set this date to the retention policy on the primary backup job, because if you set this to say 100 days, you just, like I said, you've just got to be wary that you can't then delete them, and your storage cost is really going to blow out. I mean, this is the on-prem, but the principle applies also to capacity tier. So that's essentially how you would enable that on the performance tier, and you would enable that on the capacity tier. Once you've created the buckets or containers, depending on whether you're AWS or Azure, you go to your Scale Out Backup repository. As you can see here, we've got a couple of repositories. And if I right click on the Scale Out Backup repository, give it a name. The performance tier is, as I said, your on-prem, your SAN, DAS, SMB. Then your data locality or performance with regards to placement. Now, 99 times out of 100, it would be locality, because you're having your VBKs and your VIBs all on the same extent, or you can split those out for performance reasons. Then you have your capacity tier, and you just tick the box and you add in that capacity or that bucket or container that you've created in the previous step. And then this is where you can start to do the move or the copy capabilities. Now, I touched on it earlier, and I said that the move capabilities is around GFS backups, is around sealed backups. So your weekly, monthly, yearly type backups, as soon as they're sealed, and as you can see here, what I've done here, I've said any backups that are sealed and 7 or older days old, then they get moved to object storage. Now, when we brought this to market, we didn't have the copy capability. This was 9.5 update 4. Now, that obviously broke the 3-2-1 rule, because we were moving it, not copying it. But this was ultimately GFS backups, long-term retention. With version 10, we brought the copy function. Now, 99 times out of 100, you'd probably want to use both of these, because the copy knows about the move and the move knows about the copy. So this is for the DR and DR use case. So this is a forever incremental. And as I said, they both know about each other because we have a metadata shell in the performance tier and also metadata in the bucket or container. So we will only send unique blocks. So if you've recently sent a number of GFS backups and you're sending your backup job finishes in your copy into object storage, it may send hardly anything, maybe one block, because most of it's been sent as part of the GFS backup. So very, very intelligent when it comes to what's sent up to object storage. And then with version 11, sorry, let me untick that. That's the reason for that. And then archive tier, tick the archive tier, pick the bucket or container you want to use. Now, this is normally set to 90 days. We've set it to 0 because we were forcing backups into Deep Archive. But essentially, again, there's a level of intelligence there because anything that's going into Deep Archive that's going to be deleted 90 days or less, it's going to be a surcharge. So that Deep Archive becomes more expensive. So we normally set that to 90 days and it will only send GFS backups 90 days or older. There are a couple of configurable items here. We can extend that when we're saying Deep Archive. I know this is Azure, but if it was AWS, we want to go into the Deep Archive. We can say anything, don't send anything below 180 days. And also we can send up standalone fulls. So again, off to archive would be forever incrementals. And this is a conversation between, do you want quicker backups or do you want quicker restores? More often than not, this is data that's going to go up there, write once, read never, maybe. So the backup speed is probably more important than a recovery. But you can set those as standalone fulls. In the event of a restore, it will just pull back that full and not full plus a number of incrementals. But again, they're both unticked by default. And then next, and you've finished. And that's when you've configured your scale out backup repository. And then simply as a case of making sure that a backup job is targeting that repository. So here you will see AWS scale out backup repository, for example. You'll also see here that once this is our on-prem disk backups. Once you've sending data to object storage, you'll see it object storage. We don't have the archive tier configured here because we have a number of firewall challenges that we need to sort out before an archive tab would appear here as well. But this is everything here is in capacity, is in object storage, the capacity tier. But if I right click on this, even though it's in object storage, I have the same capabilities as if it was on-prem. So I can do an instant VM recovery, mount that backup file directly via the mount server to an ESXi host, for example, or I can do a granular file level recovery, or I can indeed restore that to another public cloud. So if it's currently in Azure and I want to send it to AWS, I can do. And it really shows you that portability and mobility of our backups. We could do backup on-prem, send it to public cloud, back it up in public cloud, bring it back on-prem and recover it on-prem. That public cloud protection is for Veeam backup for AWS and Azure, and that's separate product, but it does integrate with VBR. Just mindful of time. Craig, any questions at this stage, or is there any sort of topics that have come up that we would like to talk about more? Would you like to go into the cloud native stuff and show how we can integrate that with Veeam backup and replication?
Yeah, let's have a look at that.
Okay. All right. So as I said, this is all the on-prem. This is Veeam backup and replication. We're backing, this is all the backup for long-term retention and DR to object storage. Also, what customers are wanting, and as we mentioned earlier on, the ability to either migrate or use public cloud for DR. Now, if you're using it for DR and you're going to stay up there for a while, you've got some major issues, the primary site, you've got to then start thinking about, well, how am I going to back that data up now I'm in public cloud? Now we have a product called Veeam Backup for AWS and Veeam Backup for Azure. Now it's version 3 of AWS and version 2 of Azure, and both of them can integrate with Veeam Backup Replication. So if I go to the backup infrastructure and the managed servers, with version 11, if I add a server, you'll see that we can both add and apply the Veeam Backup for AWS or Azure appliance. Now it's a web UI that you either deploy from the marketplace, or you can indeed deploy it from Veeam Backup Replication. So if I click on this one, for example, it will say connect to an existing appliance that you've already deployed from the marketplace or deploy a new appliance. And you'll see if I say deploy a new appliance, a couple of networking tabs appear. But if I cancel out of this, you'll see that I've already got a couple of appliances added that I personally have deployed from the marketplace. So if I just right click on this and go to properties, again, all you do is put in your credentials, the region either where you want to deploy it to if it's a new deployment, or where your already deployed appliance is. So mine was in Sydney, so I put in all that detail. You give it the name of the appliance that you want to add. The connection type, now we just direct connect with that public facing IP, but obviously customers nowadays want to be more secure. So you can either, there's a number of things you can do. You can reduce the number of people that are in the security group within the public cloud security group, but also you can do a private network, whether that's a VPN or ExpressRoute. You can set up that level of detail. But for demo purposes, we're just direct connect. Then you need some admin privileges around the account you're using to add in the web UI. And then you've got to put the, in this case, the AWS access key to be able to use the S3 repository as your landing zone for your backups. Because what we do, we've always been able to protect cloud-based workloads with agents prior to our agentless approach with Veeam Backup for AWS and Azure, using protection groups and protecting them within VBR. But now we're able to use cloud native backup to get that agentless approach, leverage the EBS snapshots as a source for backups and put them into an S3, in this case, an S3 bucket. And then it's just apply and finish, and that will go ahead and add in the appliance so it's visible from VBR, and add in the, as we call an external repository, where you can see the backup files that will be created as part of that, as part of those policies. And I'll show you in a minute how we create policies. But if once the appliance is added and I go into the backups, as you can see here, I'm not only now looking at jobs that are traditional backup jobs of on-prem workloads, but I can also see my cloud-based workloads. Now with AWS, I can not only back up EC2 with maybe a SQL server running on EC2, I can also back up RDS, which would be the database service, and also the VPC. So I can, the virtual private network side of things, and we can leverage that to maybe export that into Cloud Foundation and use that as a template for other deployments. But as you can see, I got visibility of that from here. And I could even say, right, this EC2 backup of a SQL server, I can start it, stop it. The only things I can't do is create the backup policy. That has to be done through the web UI, and editing it, even though I can edit it here, it takes me to the web UI. So it's a sort of single pane of glass look and feel.
Are you, do you need any special licensing to be able to do that? Or is that just included in your, the Veeam Universal license for the workloads?
So yeah, so it's all about Veeam Universal workloads. You can't use sockets, but yes, if you had 10 workloads in cloud and you've got 60 on-prem, if you bought 70 VUL licenses, that would cover you across on-prem and public cloud. It looks to me, I think we've got issues with connectivity into public cloud at the moment, because clearly this is causing me a problem as well. So apologies to this, guys. It's just the demo center, and I don't have access to this. This is up in Sydney. So yeah, this is going to not allow me to actually show you it. But ultimately, it's a web UI where I can create policies, edit policies. I can set up GFS backups for my cloud native workloads. With the AWS product, I can even add in replication. So if I want replication to multiple availability zones within AWS, I can do that as part of the product. And also application aware backups. We can, actually, it's just slow. It's allowing me to connect. There we go. So this is AWS. This is the Veeam backup for AWS. So this, because I said right click edit, it's taken me into edit a policy. Even now I'm now in the web UI. It's sort of a single pane of glass look and feel. So I can next, I just add in the IAM that's relevant to this deployment, the region of where the VM or RDS service is running, the resources that I want to protect. So I can do instances, but I can do tags as well. As you can see, I'm just backing up the SQL Server. I can exclude volumes if I want to. Guest processing, so I can, as I was about to mention, we can leverage the SSM agent to get that application aware snapshot for Windows machines. Linux, we can use pre and post scripts. And this is where we can do that replication to multiple availability zones. And this is the backup. And this is where we can get our daily, weekly, monthly, yearly backups. For this is all our cloud native workloads. Another nice feature is here, estimated cost of this workload across snapshots, replicas, backups, traffic, transactions. Give you a nice idea of whether or not, how much it's going to cost. So that's the cloud native thing. I guess one thing I just wanted to touch on, and just to close out that portability and mobility of the Veeam backups, is how easy it is to recover into public cloud. And again, it may be delayed slightly because there seems to be some performance issues. But if I go to my on-prem workloads and wanted to move, for example, this domain controller up to public cloud, I could just go right click, send it to Amazon, put in my credentials, where I want to place it, next. I can give it a prefix or a suffix or change the name entirely. I can put tags against it. And this is where I can choose what size of instance that I want in public cloud. Again, there might be a slight delay on this, but that's it. Here we go. So it will allow me to pick what size of instance I want within public cloud. And the nice thing is it will give you an estimated cost. You could determine what disks you want to send. Next, and then it's simply a case of just adding in your VPC, your subnet, security group, and whether you want a public facing IP. And Secure Restore is that ability to run an antivirus across your the backups before it goes into production to make sure it's clean before recovering that into public cloud. So just show you, I won't run this because it takes some time to run, but it gives you an idea of how simple it is to recover workloads or migrate workloads, depending on the use case, to public cloud. Any questions, Craig? Does this resonate with you a lot? That these type of use cases?
Yeah, the ability to go in and out of cloud through your backup is great. The one thing, what does it look like in the event of a disaster? So the scenario is my data center has disappeared. I've got all my backups in the cloud. How do I then, without my backup server being around because it's disappeared with my data center, how do I utilize my backups to get back up and running?
Yeah, great question. So really, with that capability of with that function or that feature of having the metadata not only on-prem but in the container or bucket, it's self-subscribing, right? It's self-aware. So we could lose an extent on a SOBA. We could lose the entire SOBA, the entire backup server, or indeed the entire site, and we could deploy Veeam Backup Replication in the cloud, for example, add in some local performance tier storage, or within public cloud, some storage locally, add in the S3 bucket, let's say AWS, for example, the bucket, rescan, and you'll see all your backups. And at that point, you can recover wherever you need to recover, and add in if you want to add in your cloud native workloads as well, you can add back in the appliance. So very, very straightforward when it comes to recovering. All right, my backups are all in public cloud. How am I going to get access to those? Well, that's how you do it. And with that copy function, you know that every backup that is run, it's copy into object storage. Unlike the move is GFS. To answer your question?
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
So you can realistically, you could be back up and running within an hour or two from losing a site to being able to, in a position to restore all of your servers into the cloud. You would be. It doesn't take very long to run up those machines, so it'd be a couple of hours, and you'd be ready to hit the button.
Yeah, obviously, then it's time to recover, but it's very straightforward. It's very minimal time to get yourself back up and running and actually get access to your backups. Another thing to bear in mind is with the cloud native piece, to address that 3-2-1, if we've recovered into public cloud and we're backing up into public cloud, the only place we're going to is S3. So we want to get that third copy. So basically, we say we've got another site that we want to bring it back to. We can do a backup copy job of those cloud native workloads. So here, EC2, I can do a backup copy job back on-prem. So addressing that 3-2-1, add in, this is all I think I picked AWS. So I could just say, right, that one, add, next, target a local repository. And even set up your GFS at that point. So again, showing you how powerful it is with regards to moving your data to where it needs to be, as opposed to that technical limitation.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes to go. Is there anything else we want to cover off? Any questions from the floor? Nope. Excellent. Well, Steve, thank you so much. I know the demo gods weren't on your side today, but you handled it beautifully. Thank you very much. And Thomas also as well. And thank you, Craig. That's right on the hour, guys. So thank you for joining us. I'll send through a copy of the recording. And if you have any questions, we're certainly available to have a chat and get Steve on the line so you can work through your individual requirements with him directly. So have a great afternoon. Stay warm.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you.